Our guest reviewer joins the program virtually this morning as we look to expand our discourse. We'll be joined shortly by the MD of CSA Advisory and an ardent economics and political affairs analyst, Dr. Aliyu Ilias, who joins us virtually. Hello, Doctor. Good morning, and thanks for choosing to join us on the program this morning. Now, Doctor, quite worrying, while we wait to have better reception on your end, quite worrying is a recurrent abduction of schoolgirls, particularly in the northwest corridors of the country. Kebbi State being the most recent, where 25 schoolgirls were abducted. Whilst the president has vowed a swift rescue of these schoolgirls, the National Assembly is also looking to probe 145 billion naira as earmarked for the Safe School project, which was supposed to serve as a deterrent to this recurrent abduction of schoolgirls in particular. Remember, we're still calling for the release of the Chibok girls more than a decade later, and as if that is not enough, we're revisited with this sad history with fresh abductions of 25 schoolgirls. Let's get your thoughts on this, sir.
My heart goes out to the vice principal who lost his life in the incident, and we hope that the girls that are adopted will be found very, very soon. But you recall that, according to security experts, that any adoption that takes over 24 hours before a critical action, it might be a difficult one. However, we are hopeful that these girls will be found healthy and sound as it were. But the fact remains that this is not the second time. Beyond the Chibok girls, we also have that incident as well before this and all other pocket of incident. I think it's pretty difficult that it is when incident happen that our government will start the probe of the money or what have you. What have we been doing to monitor those fund safe school? What have we been doing? Have we have check a quarterly analysis of it, a yearly analysis of it? So it's so sad that this, and there is some. I'm sure there is some intel that speaks to the people who are concerned, but there was nothing they did about it. So my hope is that we could get it and get this rescue. It's also a pointer to what Donald Trump is actually saying. And this is also an opportunity for us to also call on him to support us in this case. Because you recall that somebody was kidnapped, a citizen of America was kidnapped outside Nigeria, but bring into Nigeria. But their own security came into Nigeria without the knowledge of Nigeria and rescue rescue their own citizen, just one citizen. They came all the way from America for. So I think they should also use those weapons, those intelligence, to help us in this case. So sad that this is happening, and we are thinking we are getting to see the end of it, and now it's getting worse. Within that period, also we also have a general being killed. So sad.
Naira as a mark for the Safe School project, the initiative that was supposed to see the protection of schools, particularly girls' schools, across the northwest-northeast corridor. Beyond the probe, what's the level of confidence that it would bear any fruit in terms of finding out if those monies were judiciously put to use, and if they weren't, what punishments could possibly follow?
Right. We always have committee after committee in Nigeria. We also have every probe after probe. So most of us have lost confidence in probity or setting up committee or making our findings, because most of them will come out and there will not be any decisive action on it. But as it is now, it's good we appraise. So I like to use the word appraise rather than maybe probe. Let's appraise what we have done so far. If there is need for more fortification, or if there is need for more strategy, if there is need for more advancement, no more deployment, or if there is need to vacate people from students from some schools at all, so that you know that schools are not existing in where bandits can actually attack and kidnap them.
A growing number of out-of-school children, and in your latter comments, you're also suggesting that we have closures of these schools to protect the lives of schoolgirls. Would this be counterproductive in our quest to ensure that there is education for all in keeping with the SD?
Education can still come and can be found in different places. So if there's some places that are so inferior, let me use that language, for us to actually account for the people in that school, beyond even girls. It could be men that, that this place is not safe, this place is around where bandits operate. We should do something because we know that the corridor of Kebbi, Sampara, and Katsina, we know that corridor is becoming much more, tense for the operation of the Boko Haram, ISWAP, and other insurgency. So in that case, that simply means that they can come into the city more, and when the thing gets settled, or when we have confidence that we have eradicate such happenings in our environment, they can actually reopen those schools. So I don't say those girls should not school, but they should take them to where, or they should fortify the security in a particular environment and bring all of them there, which is far, far better.
The security, like you're calling for, was part of the reasons why 145 billion naira was earmarked for the Safe School initiative. But beyond that, we always hear the rhetoric that the primary responsibility of government is the protection of life and property. So by inference, are we saying that this is a failure of government in the situation in Kebbi and other areas where schoolgirls who ought to enjoy education have been abducted in the course of their studies?
Cross of the matter, which is that the essence of the governance is to protect the life and property of citizens and welfareism. So if you look at it on that backdrop, you discover that it is not something negotiable. An ungoverned space simply means there is no government existing. So you cannot have democracy, you cannot have government under Bola Tinubu, you cannot have government that have a military commander, you cannot have government that have police, you cannot have government that have DSS, you cannot have government that have different paramilitary, and we say we are not safe. So I think they should up their game. They should go in terms of technology. They should do necessary collaboration. Governors should maybe devolutionalize power to governors the more. So I think our people that are closer to all this area, maybe by so doing, because for you to kidnap within 24 hours and there's no any message that they are being tracked, they are being followed, 3 have been released, 4 have been released, everything just went quiet, which is much more deep. By now, they would have shared those ladies and a different manner. It's a bad experience that every parent don't wish for. Even as an individual, we don't wish to be kidnapped.
And it gets even more dicey when you look at more reports coming in following the aftermath of this kidnap, that there was indeed an alarm raised that there would be such an attack. And mysteriously, those security personnel who were saddled with guarding the comprehensive girls' school in Maga mysteriously left their post before the attackers came. And even whilst the attacks were ongoing, there was little or no response when the alarm was put out there. And the vice principal, who was still in the premises, lost his life in that regard. What do you fault, especially now that you're seeing statements from the Kebbi governor saying that there was an alleged sabotage? What do you make of this? Is this fifth columnist? Who can be blamed in the wake of this, sir?
Are fifth columnists, but we are also familiar with the narrative of security guards being excusing themselves out of the location before incident happened. You recall the case of Bola Ige, we know what happened, which is much top politician, a minister at that time. We have seen what happens to him. So that means there's conspiracy somewhere and there's need for deep, deep findings, even scientific findings to know what actually happened, who passes the information, why they have to excuse themselves out of that place, who is actually giving out information, because somebody must have been giving out information. Then we have not even heard of how the vice principal, the VP, was killed. Was it trying to actually drag those people from taking those children? Was he actually killed directly? Is there, what actually led to his death as well? These are the things that we need to look at properly so as to be able to understand what's actually happening. For me, I think there should be a serious probe within the rank and file of the military, within the government cycle, within those guards that are there. And they did not tell us those guards. Are they school employed guards? Are they government security? Are they local vigilante? These are the things that we need to know so that we can actually put it in proper perspective.
Has sent the vice president and their condemnations from UNICEF, the first lady, all condemning these abductions. There's another angle to it. The president has to focus on other matters. The next story we're looking at is the reports that the president is set to attend the G20 Summit in South Africa and also making preparations to be part of the AUEU meeting in Angola. How important are these engagements at this time?
For me, as a Nigerian, I think we shouldn't be missing out in such global meetings. It's very critical. That's where we narrate our own story by ourselves, not the third party narrating ourselves. So I think it's good that the president will be going out for all these all important one. But beyond that, too, I think we need to also come back to the issue of Nigerian ambassador. So now that the president is going, the president is supposed to be fielded, with what is going on, the happenings on that country, what they need to talk about, different places. But now it's as if the job of ambassador is being taken over maybe by presidency office. We don't know. So they need to have that comprehensive information. For me, I think it's good president get represented by himself and say things in our own direct narrative, because what is happening globally now is that if you're not giving out your own narrative, someone else will narrate what you don't want to be part of.
Be held in Johannesburg in South Africa the weekend of Saturday and Sunday, 22nd to 23rd of November. And I'm looking at the interesting theme of the event: solidarity, equality, and sustainability. Talking about the time when part of the African nations, talking about the Sahel states who have pulled out of ECOWAS. How apt is this theme with focus on solidarity, equity, and sustainability?
We don't know the breakout session, what it's all about. And I think it's a good opportunity for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to also say that there is no genocide in Nigeria, but we have issue of mass killing in Nigeria.
G20 Summit on the one hand is also important to also focus on the African Union, European Union Summit. It's going to be the 7th edition and it's going to be happening in Luanda, Angola. Talking about AUEU meetings, how different in your perspective are the agendas from the G20 Summit, and how does it focus on Nigeria coming to the table with our own unique needs?
Talk about G20. I think G20 selected economic leadership, and so that's where they decide on and discuss on the global challenges and how to actually solve them. That's quite important. When we talk about EU is European Union, simply means a kind of European Union which is much more segmented compared to the global meeting. If you look at G20, it's more of a global meetings because it's going to determine and discuss what is affecting the global community. And that's why they are putting solidarity and sustainability and equity. Equity, I think, is much more needed at this point in time. I think it is time for the global community to consider one African country among the superpower, because by the time you consider us among superpower, we can also galvanize and support ourselves in terms of solidarity to fight this common menace of insurgency in Africa.
Look at the list of those accompanying the president on his 2-day visit to South Africa. We have the likes of senior officials and the likes of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tugar, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Adu, Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, Minister of Trade and Investment, Jumoke Oduwole, the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ambassador Mohammed Mohammed. Now, two of these persons have been under immense scrutiny, one following his appearance on the Piers Morgan interview, where allegations on the Christian genocide were part of the major topics of discourse, and now for intelligence, Ambassador Mohammed Mohammed. How crucial are their involvements in this visit, and what significance should it portend?
If you look at the entourage that are going with the president, it's just it's a two-edged sword for them. One is the economic team, because you have the minister, you also have the person who to boost the economic trade and investment. You also have mining, which is new oil that we are hoping that Nigeria will get. Then you look at the intelligence. Intelligence is very, very key, because at this point in time, there is misinformation everywhere concerning the killings in Nigeria. So I think they want to go there to put into right perspective about what's actually happening. Yes, there's killing, like I said earlier, but I don't think we should call it genocide or we should put it to one religious or the other. So I think it's a good one that has this selected individuals following them. There's a lot of paperwork and presentation as they are going. So I'm confident they are going to do justice to expected information that they are expected to engage in.
To touch on your comments on the alleged Christian genocide, the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has reaffirmed its position on the alleged Christian genocide in line with the most recent attacks of a CAC church in Kwara. The church is reportedly between the boundaries of Kwara and Kogi State, and videos that have now gone viral show the moments during service when gunmen invaded the church, abducted a few persons, and whilst we await official police reports, there are reports by certain church members who escaped that 3 persons were killed in that wake. What do you make of this? It almost seems as though more evidence to buttress the position of Khan is coming to the wake.
Right. So the fact remains that there's always such narrative that do happen. So it's sad to have any attack either on the church or on the mosque. And this happening this time is just it should be we have to call for investigation. I am not in support of attacking any church or anymore. I think it's bad. In fact, it's my state, so it's what we are not used to. We are cohabiting. We are used to cohabiting in my state. We have Christians, we have Muslims, and we have been cohabiting. So this need to be they need to do a lot of findings in this area to ascertain who actually carried this attack and what is their objective. Because I cannot agree that the main aim of attacking such church is to, undermine or kill Christian or Christian genocide. They need to find out what is their alternative. Because we cannot ascertain at this point in time that it's either a Muslim or a Christian that actually carries out the attack. And that's why we must go ahead to do the findings. Our security agency, our DSS, they need to do more to arrest the perpetrators and get to know their modus of their aim of carrying out such a disaster. It is condemnable. And even fellow human, with irrespective of religion, no one should kill, no one should take law to his hand to kill a fellow human. So I think government needs to do more and bring those perpetrators. And my heart goes out to victims of such incidents.
Those who carried out this attack, the police report says hoodlums. Like you rightly said, we cannot decipher from the videos what religious sect they are. And whilst it is coming at a time when these allegations of targeted killings of certain religious groups are coming in, the worry is on the response time of security agencies. The police statement that we now have, where the State Commissioner of Police, Adekimi Ojo, has said that in collaboration with local vigilante, they responded to distress calls, but by the time they responded, some of the assailants had escaped with the abducted victims. Human beings are not a pack of pencils you just grab in one fist and run away with. To abduct more than 10 persons in a vehicle and not leave a trail which the police can follow in terms of rescue is even worrisome. And now we hear that 2 male victims identified as Mr. Aderemi and Mr. Tunde Asaba Ajayi have died from gunshot wounds they sustained during the attacks. It's quite sad to see this report as detailed as this and little reports as to if there's any hopes of rescuing the abducted.
Saddened that we have actually lost a life, not one, not even two this time. The sad thing is that and this is why we call for state police, because I think the reason why governments are holding back, maybe because of political gains of some governors when you have state police. But I beg to disagree with that narrative. I think by the time if we have state police, which we have something in that community, there won't be call for long distance command, there will be immediate command. So I think that such thing will be attacked. I think our presidents need to do more beyond the rhetoric. We need to go with political will to actually make it happen. So our National Assembly needs to do more because we don't know who will affect next. Look at it; it has affected general. So I'm sure the military community are not happy at what happened, and if it will happen to general, that means it will happen to anyone. So I think it's time for Nigeria and Nigerians, especially our leaders, to make sure they put something in proper perspective to actually fight this insurgency. It's becoming one too many. We don't know what happened next.
quite rightly brought in there. Another report coming in is that the Senate, following deliberations, has urged the federal government to recruit an additional 100,000 military personnel to curb this spate of abductions. Talk us through how much of a significance 100,000 boots on grounds would help in curbing this spate of attacks that is across all 6 geopolitical zones.
I think it's coming, well, I wouldn't say late. It's better late than never. We have seen this trajectory happening. So why we wait until there is an incident before we react? And that's why we said sometimes we appear to be much more reactive than being proactive. You know, we need more hands. It is clear that Nigerian military is overwhelmed. It is clear that Nigerian police is overwhelmed. It's not stories that we need to be told. So I think now that they have seen it, it's a good one that they are putting up. Such a decision. We hope they will put in haste. And my cautious optimism here is that I hope those elements that are disrupting our peace will not also find their way into this recruitment.
100,000 military personnel versus the need to constitute state policing, or the debates on non-kinetic approaches, because I see some persons talking about being able to negotiate with some of these abductors other than using kinetic approaches. Where do you fall amidst all these narratives?
Of kinetic and non-kinetic need to be bring to bear, because you cannot say you always go with your guns everywhere. No, you have to engage traditional rulers. You have to look at different. But I also have issue with the non-kinetic narrative. Some contrast will be saying that when you say non-kinetic, that simply means you should grant amnesty, you should negotiate with bandits. While some say the non-kinetic simply means that you should involve the civilians, especially the traditional rulers and what have you. But for me, I don't think there is need for us to negotiate with bandits. I don't think there is need for us to give them opportunity, because this mayhem is too much, and there seems that there is no pity for us on their own part. So for me, I think we should combine the two. Then in terms of putting 100,000, I think it's important at this point in time. They are surely overwhelmed. We saw them at every, if you go to some states now, at every kilometer, you see Nigerian military checkpoint. So they are surely being overwhelmed. But that's not erode the importance of having a state policing or community policing. It's very, very key, because in such a location in Kogi State now, when those people are approaching the community, if we have community police, I say these people are actually new here, they are new faces, we don't know where their motive is, they would have checked, because an internal person will not come and carry out the attack. It's someone that came all the way outside. Maybe if we have had the community policing strategy, or state policy as it were, would have identified, and they would have raised alarm even before these incidents happen.
It's more on the commitment to implementing it. As brilliant as these ideas are on paper, the implementation and the gaps that continue to raise concerns whilst we suffer with this onslaught of abductions are a reality in Nigeria. How expedient is it that the National Assembly and the respective governments of the day put their hands to the pumps in achieving this?
There's no way not all of them will lost of holidays, but beyond the support, we want them to put it to practical. There should be timeline. That to be employed between now and February, that to be trained between February and March, and they will be on the field. This is what we want. It's not by saying it or by declaring it. We want an action. A government that is responsive would have reduce a lot of the mayhem that will happen. So I think we need a proactive government, we need a proactive governors, we need a proactive senator or national assembly rather, to actually put things in proper perspective as early as possible, especially now that we want to get more hand. I think we need it as urgent as possible.
Moving on to another issue in the news this morning, let's take it away from the sad rhetorics of what's been happening in terms of abductions, kidnappings, and killings. Let's come to one good news, which happens to be your forte as an economist. Let's talk about Nigeria's external reserves. The Central Bank of Nigeria reports that it has hit a 7-year high to the tune of $46.7 billion. Walk us through what this implies for Nigeria and what are the contributing factors that have led to this raise in.
It's glaring that the government of the day is committed to see the macroeconomic indicator being positive. When you have such amounts in your foreign reserve, it simply speaks to the stability of the economy. Because once you have a sound foreign reserve for 6.7 now, I think it will help us in the supply side of the forex. Because if you look at it now, we have if you look at the forex now, naira dollar, you see that naira is gaining much more ground. If you also look at it very very critically, you see that we are getting stronger in other macroeconomic indicator. Perhaps when you have foreign reserve, it's also a tool for the international community to see your economy being strong. Perhaps if you want to borrow more money, it should be given. But when you look at our deficit budget and you look at our borrowing, you now just oppose it. You are keeping more money into your foreign reserve and you are borrowing more money. It appears to be a bit contradicting. So, and that's where I want us to look at it critically. So, sometimes you don't need to have, maybe by now that we have 46 billion, I will advise the government to also take it easy so as to push more money into other capital projects, into things that will be meaningful that Nigerians will actually benefit from. Because the well-being of Nigeria, the welfare of Nigeria is also critical beyond having much money at the foreign reserve.
What are some of the contributing factors that have brought about this, would I call it, surge in the external reserves?
We are getting more money from oil and non-oil sector, and government is thinking it's better they put it in that area, which is not that bad, except the fact that we need to look at other alternative forgone. We have to look at it critically as an economist to look at when you're putting this money and even the 40 billion that is there, what are we using it for? We have to look at it. Who is actually managing it for us? Is it JP Morgan? Is it Nigerian? Does Nigerian maybe investment companies also have access to it to actually use it and whatnot? So these are the things. But that's a contributing factor. You see that government said they are making more money from first subsidy removal. We also see that our oil, we are actually doing more in terms of food oil. I think we have a considerable piece in that area. The government have concentrated more on much more output. I think these are the source that will get the revenue from.
Also listening to the CBN Governor Oluyemi Cardoso saying that partly we should also focus on disinflation for the third consecutive month. The figures are looking down and it's restoring investors' confidence. The vice president was lauding the reforms of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, talking about the fact that we're on an upward trajectory towards achieving 1 trillion economy, and these are some of the low-hanging fruits. Help me appraise their statements and what's the reality in that regard.
For finance, bringing about CD gas, where they said disinflation, economic growth, and whatever, that they want to actually make sure that they sustain the disinflation. They want to bring inflation down. I think they are good trajectory for Nigerians, but the fact is that we need to come back to man on the streets. How has it translated to it? I think government should be much more concerned. I think that's why they actually have that ZD gas or whatever to actually make sure that those things they are saying actually translate to the development and the availability and increase in purchasing power, disposable income of Nigerians. So I think it's a good one that they are coming up with such trajectory and such analysis. But we must see it because inflation is now at 15.05% from 18.03%. You can see the it's coming. But my problem now is that we not have demand problem. We have to look at it very well. We not have demand problem. So when I mean demand problem, simply means that does Nigerians have purchasing power? We have not seen transportation coming down. We have not seen cost of energy coming down. And these two things is going to help Nigerians to have more money. So there could be availability of food. Food can be cheap, price of commodities can be cheap, but does Nigeria have the power, the purchasing power to actually buy it? That's the problem that we. So we may have demand side problem now at this point in time.
He's saying, how does this translate to the livelihood of the common man, particularly with reference to some of the terminologies people hear, like euro bond issuance is helping our external reserves grow. When the common man, or should I say the layman, hears the euro bond issuance, it's a far detachment from the reality of having disposable income. Can you juxtapose the euro bond issuance and its advantages to the foreign reserves vis-a-vis the disposable income of a common man in this debate?
We going for Eurobond. I think we don't need it. I see it as an excessive way of trying to score or make more money. For me, Eurobond is much more expensive for Nigerians. So recall that when you go to international community to borrow, that's why it was oversubscribed. Your payments is going to be determined by euro, dollar, and whatever. So the more the euro goes up, the more you have to also pay dividend on it. So for me, it's just like we are pushing ourselves to a corner that in future we may have issues. That simply means that the more the naira lose value, the more you have to pay more for those things. So if even other economic factors can push it because of that gain that people want to gain from it. So I don't know, because I would prefer we go to normal IMF or normal Bretton Woods institution, World Bank, compared to going to that area. Because the more you do that, the more it have issues. Then you have moratorium when it is the IMF. There's room for negotiation. There's a lot of opportunity. The interest rate also is mostly minimal compared to Eurobond. So for me, I think it's a quest for us to score points and to show a lot of things. I'm not a fan of going for Eurobond. However, I talked about people's disposable income. Disposable income simply means that you have much more money. That means things are cheap. But what we're actually saying now is that even the money you have, the demand level itself is not there for you. We have not seen what is actually eroding people's money is energy. When we talk about energy, we talk about transportation, we talk about electricity and other things. And that's what make cost of commodity much, much high. You can also see that NBS have also reviewed the weighted average of food components in the inflation measurement. Before it was 50, I think it has been brought down to 40. That could also be a trigger that we see that is helping the inflation to actually come down. But we are happy that it's coming down, because maybe with some lag time, with some period, we'll start feeling it, hopefully.
One more issue to discuss, and this is the growing calls from Nigerians for upward review of wages. One association that has been on the front pages recently is the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, who, following an agreement with the federal government in 2009, are threatening a fresh action, saying that the government has failed to show any sincerity in implementing some of their demands. They have also rejected the federal government's proposed increase of salary while threatening to down tools. Talk us through your view of ASU's position on this matter.
Honestly, the plight of ASU is quite very, very important to look into critically. And I think the minister needs to also come down more and be in tandem with the reality. Because when you see the minister talking sometimes as if they have solved all the problem, but when you get to hear from ASU, God, that nothing has been solved. But because it's a day-to-day thing that I see, being somebody who is in academics as well, we've seen that if you look at the life of a lecturer, and look at the economic life of a lecturer, discover that it's pretty sad that you see that people that are embodiment of knowledge, people that transfer knowledge to people, find it difficult to survive as expected. You also agree with me that with Nigerian current economy, the meager salary that academics are receiving cannot take them home. It's not even up to taking home let alone, using it for other things. So I think government must come to the plight. And this incessant strike that we see here and there, I think it must be stopped. I recall President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I've said it in different occasions that in his administration, there will not be strike. But we have been seeing strike from the medical doctors, we have strike from the academicians. These are the things that we need to look at. So I think the plight, perhaps maybe government should look for a particular percentage, maybe in oil and gas, to actually channel their salary through so that we won't have issues. Because it's becoming one problem too many. It's disrupting academic calendar from all the academic and endeavor that I've embarked on. I don't see one that is not disrupted with one strike or the other, and it's not a good one. And we have had a lot of private institutions now. It's sad that most of these our elite are taking their children to either abroad or either private school, which they don't understand what is going on in public schools. We need to look into it critically as it's affecting the academic pursuits of our children.
The accusation on the priority of government when it comes to education. The budget has also been scrutinized in terms of allocations to the sector, but more so in terms of resolving disputes, trade disputes between unions. There's also been accusations of politicizing the academic union with the rise in Konoa as well, vis-a-vis the demands of ASUU. How does the government resolve these insinuations and ensure that trade disputes are solved and they do not lead to downtimes in learning?
But I'm convinced that the Congo are not operating in different climes. They're not operating in different academic environment. So I'm sure someday they have to come in agreement with ASU because ASU is much more a bigger umbrella that is fighting for everyone. You recall that most of the agreement, this is 1999 agreement that need to be reviewed, need to be discussed. I think government should have a 5-year plan for ASU and not to be and with options whereby they'll say 5 years we don't want to see strike. What are the things you want? These are what and what we can actually afford. I think that would bring peace and sanity to that sector. So for me, I don't see Conwa as a threat because they are they're not that large in population and numbers compared to what we actually have in ASU.
I must thank you for taking our time to lend your thoughts to the issues in the news this morning. We appreciate you. Wishing you the best of the rest of your day.